The city of Karnas was a grim and sprawling metropolis on the edge of the galaxy, a hub for trade, crime, and cruelty. It was a place where freedom was a luxury, and for many, alien and human alike, life was just survival. The Rojan, a proud alien race with skin that shimmered like liquid gold and eyes that glowed faintly blue, had once been rulers of their own system. Now, they were scattered, enslaved, and broken, sold like property to the highest bidder. Most people in Karnas barely blinked at the sight of a Rojan in chains. They were tools. They were property. No one cared. No one, except for Daniel Cross. Daniel was just a human trader, scraping by on Karnas. Like most humans on the fringes, he kept his head down and minded his own business. He had no family left, no connections, and no reason to get involved in anything dangerous. Until the day he saw her. She was standing on the auction block in the heart of the city market, her wrists shackled together with glowing bands of containment energy. Her skin shimmered gold under the harsh, artificial lights, but her eyes, fierce and defiant, were what held Daniel's attention. Lot 47, the auctioneer called, a bulbous alien whose voice carried across the crowded square. A fine Rojan worker, strong and obedient. Bidding starts at 200 credits. The crowd murmured with interest, some shouting bids, others appraising her like livestock. The Rojan woman stood tall despite the weight of her chains, her gaze never leaving the horizon. Daniel felt something stir in his chest. Rage, sadness, a sense of injustice. He didn't know why this moment, why this woman, affected him so deeply. He'd seen dozens of auctions before. He'd walked past enslaved beings without so much as a second glance. But something about her was different. "I'll give you 500 credits," a loud alien in a mechanical suit called, laughing. "She'll work the mines well enough." 600, came another voice. Daniel's heart pounded. He didn't have much, certainly not enough to outbid merchants with deep pockets. But his mouth opened before he could stop himself. 700 credits. The crowd fell silent for a split second. Heads turned. Someone scoffed. "Is that a human?" The auctioneer looked annoyed. 700 credits from the human. "Do I hear 800? The mechanical-suited alien sneered. 800. Daniel clenched his fists. He didn't know what he was doing or how he was going to pay, but something pushed him to keep going. 900. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "What's he playing at?" someone muttered. 1,000. The mechanical alien boomed, glaring at Daniel. Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't win this by outbidding. So instead, he did something reckless. He climbed up onto the platform, standing next to the Rojan woman, who looked at him with wide, confused eyes. "What is this?" the auctioneer snapped. "I challenge," Daniel shouted, his voice echoing through the market. The crowd erupted into chaos. A challenge was an old law, rarely invoked, a human tradition brought to Karnas long ago. Anyone who couldn't outbid in an auction had the right to challenge the highest bidder to a duel for the right to claim the lot. It was madness. The mechanical-suited alien turned toward Daniel, amusement in his artificial voice. "You're challenging me? Over a slave?" Daniel didn't answer. He just stared him down, his jaw set. The duel was quick and brutal. Daniel had no armor, no weapons beyond a crude energy baton. The alien was stronger, faster, and outfitted with advanced tech. Daniel was tossed to the ground twice, his ribs aching and his body screaming for him to give up. But every time he looked up, he saw her, the Rojan woman. She hadn't moved, but her glowing blue eyes were locked on him, no longer confused. Instead, there was something else there, hope. When the alien lunged for the finishing blow, Daniel dodged at the last second and struck the energy baton against the alien's exposed circuitry. Sparks exploded, and the mechanical suit seized, collapsing to the ground. The crowd fell silent. Daniel stood over his opponent, battered and bloody, but victorious. "The human wins," the auctioneer grumbled. "The lot is his." Daniel limped over to the Rojan woman, his breath ragged. He reached out and pressed a button on the shackles. They released with a hiss, falling to the ground. "You're free," he said, his voice hoarse. The Rojan woman stared at him. "Why?" she whispered. "Because someone had to do something," Daniel replied simply. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then, quietly, she said, "My name is Saria." "Daniel," he replied, managing a weak smile. "Nice to meet you." Word spread quickly about the human who had risked everything to save a Rojan slave. Some thought he was insane. Others thought he was noble. Most just didn't understand why. Daniel didn't care. He gave Saria food, shelter, and most importantly, dignity. At first, she didn't trust him. Why would she? Humans, like all species, had turned a blind eye to her people's suffering. But as the days turned into weeks, something shifted. Saria began to smile. She told Daniel stories of her people, of their songs, their traditions, and their lost homeworld. She showed him how her kind could manipulate light, creating illusions of beauty and wonder. And Daniel, for the first time in his life, felt like he had a purpose. The slavers didn't forget. Neither did the city of Karnas. One night, their hideout was surrounded by mercenaries, sent to reclaim Saria and punish Daniel. "They'll kill you for this," Saria said, her voice trembling. "Not if I get us out of here," Daniel replied. Together, they fought. Saria used her gifts, bending light to blind their attackers, creating illusions of shadowy figures that sent the mercenaries into chaos. Daniel fought alongside her, using every ounce of his grit to protect her. When they finally escaped Karnas aboard a stolen ship, Saria stood beside him in the cockpit, watching the planet fade behind them. "You didn't have to save me," she said softly. Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Everyone deserves to be free. You're not a slave. You're Saria. And you're not just a human," she replied, a faint smile on her lips. "Your friend." Their story became legend. A human who defied the galaxy's rules to save an alien woman. Together, they travel from system to system, not just surviving, but fighting for freedom, for justice, and for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And in the dark corners of the universe, where hope was scarce, people whispered their names like a prayer. Because sometimes it only takes one person, one act of courage to change everything. And Daniel had been that person. For Saria. For freedom. For hope.